Hey now, and how are you doing? Want to welcome you to the next episode of Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. Today, we're definitely bringing a bat across the pond for my friend with my friend Kate, who's in London. But she has an incredible story, and I'm going to let her tell you the story. But she's an author, and I'm a number one bestseller. She's a leader. She has some great stories of resilience. She fits right here. Welcome. How are you doing today, Kate?
Thank you ever so much, David. I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I'm feeling like we're starting to crack the cage we've been living in many, many ways.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
no,
think,
the
yeah,
right the world has gone back to, full living, full embrace, and we've learned a lot of things during that period.
yeah, yeah,
Sure.
yeah, we have. And I think the biggest sort of affirmation to me in all of the last few years has been if you really don't quit, if you just keep going, eventually cracks occur and you start to feel like you're um winning's perhaps not the right phrase,
Well,
but that
you're more successful, right?
you're making progress. Yeah, just
It's
don't
one of those
quit.
things is when you're climbing up a mountain, you know, you don't know where the top is,
Yeah,
but you
exactly.
know when you look back how far your growth has been.
Yes, yes, that's a perfect analogy. Yeah, yeah, you
So
just got to
why don't you
keep
share a
going.
little bit about yourself and some of your journey in the past on your mountain?
I used to be a physiotherapist and I used to run my own physiotherapy clinics until 2020 when obviously I had to close them.
Yeah, the world shut down.
Yeah, when the world shut down and I lost tolerance or patience with constantly cash flowing lockdowns. So sold the last clinic that I owned to one of my team members. And then I was consulting to other clinic owners predominantly on the anatomy and physiology of a business, putting business into healthcare language so that other people could run successful practices. And that was going okay. And then in 2023, my son and I just couldn't cope with the personal environment in which we were living in any
Mm.
longer. And so he was 9 at the time. We agreed and we just drove north just to get a break from the situation we're in and go and stay with a friend. And I left letters and I left correspondence. Anyway, there was a nationwide manhunt for us. My son's photograph, he's called Gabriel, was given to every single police constabulary in the country. It's
Wow.
just like your worst nightmare. It's like, we all know that the police aren't straight. What planet was that deemed a better idea than speaking to me? I still cannot quite comprehend. Anyway, my car is tracked, but like I say, we weren't in hiding, so of course we're found.
Right. Easily
And
found when you're not trying to hide.
yeah, my car was parked on the driveway where we're staying, so we're found. And they want to speak to Gabriel. Nobody wants to speak to me. And they speak to Gabriel through a ground floor window so that he feels safe. You're not going to the door, but you speak to them through a window. And he confirms that, yeah, he's Gabriel and he's fine. No concerns. And it's reported back to Gloucestershire, which is in the south of the UK, which is where
Mhm.
we're from, that there's no concerns. That was on a Tuesday, and I still don't really know what happened between the Tuesday and the Friday. But 9 o'clock on the Friday morning, and I'm starting to chivvy Gabriel on. It's the week before his 10th birthday. I'm starting to chivvy him on to get out of his pajamas, finish his breakfast, and, we get some going with the day. And we're in the kitchen, and there's this bang at the door. And David, I still don't even really know how to describe the bang. You just know it's not your neighbor. You know
Right. You
it's
know when
not a
it's not
friendly
just a knock
bang.
on the door. Can I borrow a cup of sugar? Yeah.
It's somebody that's not come to talk to you. It's a heavy, heavy bang, and the pit of my stomach. I don't know. Just we can see through the. I mean, you don't need to see, but we can see through the kitchen. The kitchen door, the glass panel,
Mm.
and you can see through the kitchen door. It's policemen all in their gear. Gabriel and I just sort of retreat to the utility room. Don't really know what we're going to do, but we just retreat to the
Right.
utility room.
You have no idea. You have no
Oh,
concept of what they're here, and right.
They've come for Gabriel. Forced their way in, and they've come for Gabriel.
Mm.
They've come for a 9-year-old. He stands his ground. He's done martial arts since he's very, very little.
Oh,
And he used to go to a class with children his own age, but also would go to a class with teenagers. Now, the teenagers were never going to hurt him, but as a 9-year-old, if you're up against 16, 17-year-olds, you've got to raise your game. You've got to pay
yeah.
attention. And he just turned into this, he just
Well, he didn't know,
straightened
and,
up.
and given the movies out there, right? So I mean, again, putting it in a 9-year-old's mind, when police are coming to you and they're coming for you, we see so many different movies, right? So thinking of how what he thought of, I can't imagine.
I've just watched him level up like he would do in a martial arts class, and he stood his ground straight as a poker, just like he would have been in martial arts with a teenager. But how he found it in him, because those teenagers he knew, and he knew they were never going to hurt him. These policemen didn't seem to have the same intent at all of
Right? They saw a
empathy.
child not knowing his skill set.
And he stood his ground. No, 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 no. And he got louder and louder and more adamant that he was not going with them. They asked me if Gloucestershire police, because he explains to them why he doesn't want to go with them. They ask why he doesn't want to go with them. And they ask me if Gloucestershire, which is the county in the south
Mhm.
of the UK where we're from, know our story. And I say yes, but nobody is listening to us. One of them grabs him. But he
Mhm.
knows, having done all this martial arts, he knows how to get free of a grown man's grip. So he does. He just releases himself from a grown man's grip because he knows how to. Two of them grab him. Nothing we can do. Nothing. Absolutely helpless. There's nothing. I can see their body cams are flashing. I can see red lights everywhere. Thankfully, in some ways, in hindsight, I didn't. The friend we were staying with was calm, which sort of
I can't imagine being calm, even just viewing it, right? Because nobody knew that there was a threat, right? No, until they banged on the door, not just knocked on the door.
the friend we were staying with had seen the tasers. They'd
Mm.
seen that they were armed. Gabriel's dragged, screaming his head off by these two police officers with their body cams going and the tasers on, out the house. And they take him down the drive, and they've got their police van blocking the drive. And they open the back door of the van, and it's a cage. It's a cage you put a Rottweiler in or a terrorist in. And I am in just absolute despair and disbelief. It's the 1st of December. It's the week before he turns 10. The ground is icy. He's barefoot and they're dragging him. The scream from him is just blood curdling. And yeah, just total terror in his eyes. And I think the sort of simplest way to describe it that in that only it's a reference point that everybody's seen is it's literally like you're living through the scene where the child catcher comes in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Oh, okay,
It's just
yeah,
everybody's seen that. There's a
yep.
sort of reference point that it's like that is what I was witnessing happening to my son. And I'm asking the policeman, just in despair, what have I done wrong? They say nothing. And I'm asking, what's Gabriel done wrong? And they say nothing. Like, what the
So,
hell are you doing then? And these police officers are around my age. And I'm like, your children are the same age as this. What are you doing? And they were soulless, David. They had no interest in talking to us, listening to us. It was just like they were soulless. Like they were not, like they weren't human. They were just, they'd come for a 9-year-old and they were going to get a 9-year-old. And they were
right,
going to get paid. They were going to go home and get paid that day.
yeah, and what what was eventually the reason?
Apparently, I'm an unfit mother.
So somebody
Oh,
filed a report that you're an unfit mother, and generally they would again doesn't make sense even in the behavior, because if you're the unfit mother, you might take the child away, right? So okay, let's even suggest that's true, which I can't believe that to be true. But you wouldn't rush the kid into caged. You'd put him in a nice car. You know, cookies and milk. A preparation. You might be the one who goes into that jail. Wow.
Yeah. Nobody had come to have a conversation with either of us. They'd just come for him. It's just like they were just criminalizing us or criminalizing him.
Right, they were criminalizing him, and if anything, given the charges, he's the victim. That's where so many problems in our society happen is we almost always victimize the victim, and which makes it worse because then that doesn't incentivize victims to step forward. Again, in the right situation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They drive off. Nobody tells me where they're taking him. They just drive off. And then there's a bit that I can't actually quite remember the next. I can't actually quite remember what I then did.
Sure.
I just know that within a very short window, within I don't know, 20 minutes, within 20 minutes, within 20 minutes or half an hour, within maybe it might even been 10 minutes, but within a period of time, short period of time after that, the friend we were staying with just told me, get a bag of clothes. I don't know, pull yourself together. We're getting in the car and we're going to the police station to find out what they've done with him.
Sure.
So that's what we do. So I pulled together because say 1st of December. We're in the north of England. It's icy, and so we do. We drive to the police station. I've got a bag of clothes. Where is he? And at least wherever he is, he needs some clothes. He
Right.
needs a sweatshirt. He needs some shoes. They won't tell me where he is. They won't tell me where they've taken him, and they won't take any clothes off me.
Wow. Yeah. Right. Right. What do you do? I mean, these are the horror situations that
Yeah,
you're like, I could
yeah,
prepare for some bad situations and you might not want to, but this is something that you're like, I
yeah,
don't know. And the police took him. So
yeah.
somebody, while they might not let you see him or anything like that, they
Where
can
is he?
acknowledge, right? It's yeah.
Where the hell is he? And I'm like, are you driving him all the way back to Gloucester? The back, it's about a 4 hour drive back
Glasses.
to
Yeah.
Gloucestershire. Are you driving him back to Gloucestershire in the back of a cage, or you put him in a car?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And I can't. And yeah, they won't tell me anything, and they won't take anything. So he can't. I just. And the rest of that day, I don't really remember. I don't really remember the rest of that day.
I'm sure you shut
Um,
down because not knowing it and the concern for your son.
but equally, you kind of know that you should. I can't remember the rest of that day, other than I know, thank goodness, the friend I was staying with would have made sure that I'd eaten something, and we probably went for a walk. I can't even remember, but you know, you kind of also aware that you have to find a way to function because your child is depending on you. So although you're completely traumatized, you've got to somehow find a way to function because if you don't, your child doesn't stand a chance.
Right.
So you sort of, yeah. So the following day, again, the friend we were staying with said, please, can we just ask the neighbour to come round because we need somebody that can think
Right.
clearly about what to do. So we invited the neighbour around and just sat and made the action list was actually really quite obvious, but it was just somebody that had
Oh,
clarity
but
of
but
thought.
but right. Who can think about it, right? Because you're
Yeah,
emotional.
right,
You're stuck in your
yeah,
emotions,
yeah.
and you
Just
need
numb.
somebody. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. How can you not be?
yeah,
Uh,
somebody that can tell you, right, this is what you need to do.
right.
A
Because
B C D.
throughout the situation, I mean, where is your child is the number one thing, and we think of all these things that go through our minds.
Oh, and the following day, so it was the 1st of December he was taken. 2nd December,
And,
snow had come, and the snow was up to the top of your wellies. Cars were not going anywhere. So you're like, well, where is he? Is he still in the north of Cumbria
right.
was the
And,
county,
and
so
his
we
birthday's coming up. You said right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
What
like, is he
what is
still
his
in
birthday? I'm curious because my birthday is December 7th. That's why.
Snap. It's the same.
There you
It's the
go.
same.
All right. Well, that's why when you said a week later, I was like, man, I got to
Yeah.
ask.
It's the
Yeah,
7th of December is his
yep.
birthday.
All right, then we got a connection.
Yeah.
Then that's
Yeah,
a
yeah. Yeah, we won't be forgetting you, David. We'll have to send you a birthday card too.
okay.
So,
So you're
my
trying to
brother.
So you're trying to figure out,
Yeah, so the
and you
following
can't go
days,
anywhere
yeah,
because of the snowstorm.
2nd December, well, the snow's up to the top of your wellies. And you're like, if he's still in Cumbria, he's not going anywhere because of the snow so deep and it's not, um, and,
And he has no clothes. I mean,
and he's
on
got,
top of that, he has no
oh, you
clothes.
just no idea what's going on. So anyway, one of the action points from the neighbour on Saturday was telephone the police and find out where they took him. So I telephoned the police, and the police officer I spoke to wasn't one that had come to the door. So they're just reading the
Right,
log, and they're what's reading back to me. I'm like, this isn't true. They've logged the police officers that took Gabriel have logged that I fought them off. I'm like, on what planet do you think a 40-year-old mother
right,
is actually able to fight off two armed policemen who's seen that you've got body cams on and knows that you've put her in the cage or arrest her as readily as you've taken her son? And you're like,
right.
and you just, I think, so in that moment, you realize you cannot trust the police. You know, you already can't, you don't have any confidence in them. But in that moment, you realize you really can't trust them because that report that's just been read back to me is a complete falsification because I
Mm.
know I did not touch them. You know, you want to get a baseball bat to them, but you also know that it's not going to do any favors if you do.
Yeah, no, no, of
Uh,
course, and again, like you said, that if you did physically interfere, right? I know in the States, and I'm sure since a lot of our laws come from the UK,
yeah.
that if you assaulted or stopped a policeman from doing his job, that also is an offense that they would have taken you into a separate, they wouldn't have just left you. So if all those things are true, they wouldn't have just left you. Just hey, okay, we'll let bygones be bygones, right? I mean, yeah.
And then I can't actually really remember the rest of the weekend, other than again, I certainly know, I just remember I did walk, because I remember going walking in wellies in the snow, and I think I needed to. And then I know on the Monday by now, I've informed my parents who live in Gloucestershire in the south of the UK. And on the Monday, my dad just got on his bike and just used common sense to cycle around Cheltenham, which is the town,
Yep.
to see if he could find Gabriel because nobody's communicating anything to me. And it's like, we just need to, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And my dad cycled, he just used common sense.
Yeah.
He cycled past the school gates and saw Gabriel at lunchtime in the school playground. Right, well, at least we now know where he is. At least we now know where he
Right.
is.
And then he's
And we,
well, you know.
well, he's
Well,
got all his, yeah,
relative, right? He's at school. He's,
yeah, we know
he,
where he is.
yeah,
Part of me just can't, part of me is relieved that we know where he is, obviously, but the other part of me kind of can't believe that having just gone through that level of violence, 2 days, 3 days later, he's back behind the
yep,
school gates. You're like, is there no compassion here? So you sort of mixed, uh,
yep.
just trying to, what is going on? Anyway, so um, yeah, there's then court hearings that occur in December that I'm not even invited to. I find out on the 22nd of December that Christmas is completely cancelled and Gabriel's been made a ward of the court. Being made a ward of the court means that they could have trafficked him into the care system like that. What is going on? The whole thing is completely out of control.
I mean, it seems rather quick. I know here in the States we might take a child because I've been part of that situation, not for me, but through helping people that they might be put into a home or depending on family supports and things like that. That is all fine, but not like a ward that quickly within 2 weeks,
Yeah,
right? three
yeah,
weeks.
yeah, and yeah. And I'm not even invited to these court hearings. What is going on? The Financial Times, our main financial newspaper here, just in the last few weeks has published the figures behind child trafficking in the UK.
Mm.
£384,000 per child per year.
Yeah.
So the financial stake, I mean, the financial stakes are really, really high. And to me, it just feels like, right, we are in such a predatory environment. Those policemen were behaving like apex predators. They were behaving like an orca that had come for a baby seal.
Right.
They were not human. They were literally behaving like apex predators. I felt like a mother seal. My pup was ripped from me. There was nothing I could do. And you try and then appeal to the orca or you telephone the orca. The orca is not interested in fact. The orca is just interested in its own hunger and
Right.
satisfying itself and protecting itself.
Right. But then they all start protecting. So he's a ward of the state,
Yeah.
and
And you're just
so
like, what is
and
going
you aren't
on?
able to see him. I mean, I'm
No,
just. Yep.
no. And a friend dropped off. I can't actually remember what we did about the birthday presents, but I presume I dropped them off on the doorstep or somebody dropped them off on the doorstep for me. I certainly know his Christmas presents were dropped off. I mean,
So who was he staying with? Was it
he was staying with his father in
okay? That's what I
Cheltenham.
thought. But
Yep, yep. And so I drop off, or presents get dropped off on the doorstep for Christmas. And I do remember one thing because I'm just numb and in despair, and the lawyer that's acting for me is just like, "What is going on?" She's in despair, and she's seeing the high risk of the situation. And I do remember a friend taking me to play a round of crazy golf and being really grateful. We didn't keep score, but there's something about playing crazy golf where you're just like,
well,
you
right,
kind of just,
right. You're just having fun. Rather than being in a high stressful situation that you're
yeah,
already living in
yeah,
24/7, you just go out and do
yeah,
something silly
yeah,
that you don't
exactly.
have
And
to
you've,
think about it. Yep.
yeah, and you've walked a mile without even, yeah, exactly that.
Yep.
Um, and the Lord Chancellor, the most senior lawyer in the country at the time, a gentleman called Alex Chalk, he was the MP. He was Gabriel's MP at the time, and my parents' MP. So my family have
Right.
passed the video of what was done to Gabriel by these police officers onto him. I go and sit in his office. So the most senior lawyer in the country is actually also the MP. He wears two hats.
Right. Right. So he's working through the system, and the system has already made a decision because it's incentivized
Thank you,
in
David, for
certain ways.
summarizing that. Yeah.
Yep.
Because in my mind, I'm like, hang on, there's been the most appalling overreach here. The police officers and the judge that were behind this, everybody that was behind this should be apologizing. Because if anything remotely as not even as rough, but as fraction as rough that has occurred in a playground, you'd be forcing kids to apologize to each other.
Yeah,
So,
and just because an accusation, I mean, I mean that's the thing, especially when, again, I've been through divorce, accusations come really quick, and that doesn't mean that any of those are, truthfully, I have two girls, so that was always my concern, which never happened, but it was a concern that at some point somebody would say something, and I'm like, you don't defend. You can't defend something that doesn't happen, and that's what you're working on defending.
so I've already submitted, I believe at that point, I'd already submitted to the court my medical records. Well, if I haven't, I've now made them public
Right.
because my GP records that go, as far back as digital records go, so back to my 20s, show no history of mental health, no history of alcoholism, no history of antipsychotics, antidepressants, drugs, anything. They show nothing because I never go to the GP.
Right.
I'm fit and well. And if they went back to when I was 0, they'd probably show I'd had chicken pox
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean,
and, and an
until
ear
recent
infection
until
when I was
recently, that was my
14.
medical thing as well. I
Yeah,
got pneumonia
exactly.
once, and that was it.
Yeah, exactly.
Relatively, you
Yeah,
know,
so I'm fit and well. And in 21, I'd voluntarily subjected myself to a consultant psychologist
sure. Right.
screening,
An
just
evaluation. Right.
as a defensive mechanism, because it had been sort of suggested to me that this card might be played at some time. So go and be preemptively defensive.
Hmm.
So I'd subjected myself to hours of screening, and of course the report was clear, which again I've made public. Right. But still, Gabriel is removed from me on this conjecture that I'm mad or an unfit mother. All the activities we've done, badges we've got, volunteering at athletics, everything I've done is, all the documentation of my positive parenting is completely ignored.
Sure.
So we're in court in January now, and I am invited to this hearing. By now, I've been told by lawyers and barristers it's inconvenient when mothers are educated.
Yeah.
Sounds like somebody's paid off children's services. At this point, I didn't know that it was £384,000 on a child's head. But once you know that figure, you're like, well, there's plenty of surplus cash swilling around to pay off backhanders, isn't there? I can't
Right.
prove that
Yeah.
that
Right.
happened, but
The money comes from somewhere, and it goes somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd also been told because I'd been digging into just how am I in this situation? And so I'd found government reports, report after report after report, about the harms that were going on. And I'd presented one of these to one of the barrister that represented me in that January. And he told me I was a conspiracy theorist. I was like, no, mate, that's a government white paper I've just handed you. And then you start to realize, and I was called highly dangerous, you start to realize, why am I highly dangerous? I'm highly dangerous because I'm literate, because I found reports that you don't want me to find.
Right. You
I
know,
found
I mean, even if you, like I could understand it in the sense that, you know, there are lots of good policemen. I know them. Not everybody's corrupt, but when you're experiencing it, it's really hard to see that as well, right? When you're seeing, I mean, again, when you experience it, I remember I had a family situation where they overreacted with my dad, and I was like, what the hell? Like, that's not like when you overreact, it just becomes so, like, how do you defend that? And they're just like, well, we'd rather err on the side of safety. And I'm like, safety for who? Like,
yeah, exactly.
and that's the other side of the challenge.
Yeah, safety for the institution,
Yeah.
safety for, and
So,
you start to realize they're all just protecting each other's jobs, or that's how it started to feel. Because in my mind, I was like, that
right,
barrister, I was like, this has just occurred. You should be demanding an apology. I should not now be having to fight the state to get access back to my child. The state should be
right, and
apologizing and handing my child back.
right, and really, we shouldn't have to fight for our children now.
No.
Having access, and if they felt you were really unsafe, okay, where's the proof? I mean, let's always go back to, where's the proof in the pudding, right?
Yeah. So now they're trying to
Sorry.
enforce a psychiatric assessment on me.
Mhm.
And we even got student social workers, and I presume it was a student that was done that was requested to make the phone call because then there's no recourse on a student.
Right.
Student social workers are telephoning my father, Gabriel's grandfather, trying to enforce psychiatric assessment. Why? You've got my medical records. You've got all the proof of my positive parenting. You've got this consultant professor psychologist report.
And
Why?
and
And you
then
think
throughout
you are
this,
trying to get me sectioned because you now need to protect your decision that you've supported this huge level of physical and emotional violence on a small boy. And the
and
only
did
way
they
you can
ever
do that is to
talk to
silence me.
Gabriel about this?
Gabriel won't talk to them. He used to tell me when he was little not to trust them. He was very intuitive. Don't trust them, don't trust them,
Mhm.
don't trust them. They'd go and see him at school. And then of course he just doesn't want to talk to them anymore because you've done that to him. Why on earth is he going to talk to you?
Right. Yeah. No. Of course.
Yeah. So um and yeah,
But
and then you
but at
realize
some point, they would only give you limited,
well,
opportunities
yeah,
to see him.
yeah. So you start to realize that the system's trying to protect itself. People within it are all just interested in protecting their jobs, not protecting the child. And the solution is to hold Gabriel with threat of fear of consequences of his mother being criminalised and to
Right.
try and silence or section or just shut me up because I'm a threat. And yeah, anyway, had that court hearing. I'm given an hour's FaceTime contact. I'm told that's the best I can have is an hour's FaceTime contact with my son. And that's how it's been for 2.5 years. And I'm mocked about how on earth am I going to speak to a 10-year-old for an hour? It's just like you're up against the devil. You know, the devil is just
But that's it. Is when you're up against the wall. That's part of that time when you have to decide what you're gonna do, and
you're
you.
absolutely right there, David,
Yeah.
because at that court hearing, it was like that I really understood at that court hearing, there is no negotiation here. Nobody's actually interested in negotiating with me. And I just started to feel I got a grip of the level of malevolence and malfeasance of what I was up against. And you're absolutely right. I didn't know what I was going to do, but there was a decision. There was an absolute decision at that court hearing that you are not doing this to me. And I remember also thinking, I can speak to my son for an hour. You have no idea how much he likes a story, and that was it. But you're absolutely right. There was a clarity of thought that came at that hearing of this. Nobody's interested in negotiating with me. You're not doing this. I didn't know what I was going to do, but there was a decision. Absolute flip switch there.
Yeah, and then I mean because I mean cut to the chase a little bit in that you knew storytelling is well being truthful in one situation, but the storytelling is so powerful in so many other ways.
Yeah, I just, well, there were a couple of things in that I knew, I'd just seen Gabriel just loved stories. He had as
Mhm.
a baby just oral storytelling. At bedtime we'd read to him and he'd wanted more. Once you can't read anymore and you've read the same book how many times, and you just put on, and then once I couldn't read anymore, I just put on an audio CD. And then even when he got to an age he could read his own books, he still wanted a bedtime story, so I'd read to him something he might choose of himself, and then he'd read his own book. If I was too tired, we'd play story dice in the car. He never really had the iPad. We'd have audio CDs. He just loved oral storytelling. And then my grandfather was a great oral storyteller, and I would ask for his monologues again and again and again. So this sort of shared enjoyment of oral storytelling and storycraft was kind of an integral part of our relationship, which I don't think we'd appreciated wasn't what went on in everybody else's households either, because it was
Right.
so
Yeah, we don't right,
normal
we
to
don't
us.
right, we
Yeah,
don't know what we don't know
yeah, it was so normal to
and then
us.
you with Gabriel, you guys wrote a book together, right?
Yeah, so we started off when we were in this hour week situation. I just started off just reading to him. And then after several months of us reading different books, I just would find the most illustrated books I could. After a few months of us doing this, I say to him, should we make up a story where you're the hero? And of course, what 10-year-old boy is going to say no to
Right.
that?
Look, I want to
Yeah.
be a hero. I'm 57. I want to be a hero of something.
So, yes, Mum. And he instantly starts telling me. He instantly knew what story he wanted to tell. Now, my background is as a physiotherapist. Physiotherapists don't write paragraphs. You literally just capture notes. You capture the ideas. You capture the bullet points. So I just start, as he's telling me his
Right.
story, I just literally, I'm sat at the kitchen table. He's on the other side of my iPad, but I just start capturing it because throughout all of this, I've never been limited in how much I write to him. So I was thinking, well, what I can do is type up what you're telling me and then post
Mhm.
it to you every week because that's something nice to send you in the post.
Right.
Anyway, after about 8 weeks of us doing this, we've made 6 short stories. Gabriel would tell me his story, I would type it up, then the following
Uh-huh.
week I'd read it back to him, he'd add his edits, and then we'd start on the next story. So after about 8 weeks, we've got about 6 short stories. And I've started to we've made some images in AI, so Gabriel would choose which pictures he wanted to illustrate his book, and it had been a mess across my desktop. You can imagine my desktop was just covered in this.
I know I'm an author as well, so all the little side notes and comments and thoughts about it,
So
and
after
then of course you're dealing with a 9-year-old who has a completely different set of visions and things like that, which you would want in stories.
Yeah, so after a while, yeah, 7, 8 weeks, I need to pull this all together into one Word document simply so I can actually just see my desktop again. So that's
Sure.
what I do. And then I flip my screen around and show Gabriel that I've pulled it all together into one, and he just saw a book. I mean, I'm just seeing that I've organised a Word document. Gabriel is seeing a book. Mum, it's a book. It's a book. It's a book. I'm like, yeah, right, it's a book. Mum, it's a book. I'm like, okay. Well, I'll get two. I'll just go to the local printer, get two printed, one for you, one for Granny and Grandad. Mum, it's a book. Okay, right. We're in such a diabolical situation that I can't really say no.
Right.
So I know a couple of people that know something about children's literature, and I know somebody that helps with self-publishing. So I contact them all. Get it out now, Kate, because there's nothing where children's imagination is inspiring other children. So we
Mhm.
self-publish it.
And yeah, no, and that's great. But you did a little bit more than just self-publish it. It was when you got it out, it was an Amazon bestseller.
It was an Amazon bestseller. And then the weekend it came out, it was also a literature festival. One of the biggest literature festivals in the country happens in this town, Cheltenham. And I just went along to it, and I normally would organize myself with what I wanted to see, and I hadn't even, I hadn't managed to do that. So I just get a wristband to whatever's not sold out, basically. And I ended up having this blessing, and there are blessings in this, of meeting Helen Fielding, who wrote Bridget Jones. And I'm obviously of Bridget Jones' generation, and I'm listening to her, and she's talking about what she thinks the magic is of what she did, and also Jane Austen, is they wrote for their contemporaries. They didn't write for older age group or younger age group, they wrote for their contemporaries. I'm like, well, I might be Gabriel's scribe, but she was just reinforcing what I'd heard from these other people. I'm like, wow, and she's like a major author. So okay, we are onto something. And then a friend says, "You're coming to my networking thing, and you're not talking about business or healthcare. You can talk about that book." I'm like, seriously. So I start talking about the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not telling the story behind the story. I'm literally just telling, here's a book that my son and I co-authored. And somehow I give myself permission that I can cry on the train on the way home, but whilst I'm at the networking thing, you're going to hold it together. And I keep getting asked, how did you do it? What do you mean, how did I do it? Well, how did you extract your son's imagination? Well,
I just had a
what?
conversation with him, right? But people who don't, like I've sat down, so I do some ghostwriting, and I sit with somebody. In fact, I just sat with somebody this morning, and she's like, "There's something I want to add to the book," and and I go, "Oh my God, this just shifted the whole book," and she goes, "How'd you do that?" I was like, "I don't know. I just saw it. I heard your story. Am I wrong about anything in terms of your story?" No, but I never thought of it like that. I was like, yeah, it's asking the right questions. It's, I'll even go as far as to be a little cheeky, I guess. We'll use that. In that we'll have a story quest, right? It takes you,
Mm-hmm.
stories take you onto so much further than just writing a book. My books are like when people read my fiction books and the nonfiction books, obviously different markets, but the fiction books, I'm like, yeah, I'm not Hemingway, but people get the value, the hidden gems. A better writer could write better, but this is the story that I'm giving you. I'm putting out there, and I've had some nice feedback as well.
And it gets really ironical
Yeah.
because I'm getting asked these questions by retired social workers, by teachers, by other parents and grandparents. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
you know? You're like, okay. So anyway, then an opportunity comes up to see, does this process, because it dawns on me, I'm like, well, if there is a process, the process is what I've done for 20 years as a physiotherapist. Instead of extracting stories about back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, I've just extracted stories about sea monsters and phoenixes and whatever else. And but the idea of somebody telling their story orally, being the scribe, and then typing it up, and then a verbal handshake to check you've understood, you got it right, and allow them to add their own edits. Well, that's what I've done for 20 years as a physio. So does this work with other children? I don't know. I've never worked. I wasn't a pediatric physio, and I've never worked in schools. So anyway, an opportunity comes up to pilot this in schools. First classrooms, 60 children in a very inner city area in a quite deprived town in the north of the UK. They all love it. Of course, they all want to be the hero of
Sure.
their own story. About 500 children later, David, every single one says yes, they want to be the hero of their own story. Nobody has said no to me. And they do exactly the same process. They go into pairs. One of them's a storyteller, one of them's a scribe. So they're only having to do one executive function at a time. If you're the storyteller, it's just about go for it with your imagination. You can't be wrong today. You can only be right because it's your hero story. So you can't be wrong. It's your story. There isn't a, you can't fail.
Right.
And then your friend's going to capture your ideas and then you'll swap over. You'll help each other up level your story, fill in any blanks and missing bits. And then they're chomping at the bit to write it. And the teachers are looking at me like, when did this happen in my classroom? When did I get And because we don't have the educational bias, we don't know who's labeled with whatever that, and we don't know who
Right.
the
And
children
people
are
know
that
stories. So even
ah,
people who are, less abled, they still have stories. I mean, they still have
exactly.
their mind working. It might work
Exactly.
differently, but
Yeah.
guess what? If you're writing a book for those markets, those are the people who know it, right?
Yeah.
They can communicate. That's the magic part. There's so much that we don't know about ourselves
Yeah.
that then when we learn just by asking for somebody, the feedback, or we were in a club in a group, and you're like, what they went through because you went through it as well.
Yeah. And they're just the kids are just loving it, and the teachers are like, whoa, 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 what is going on in my classroom? And the kids are also loving that they realise that actually that we don't want celebrities creating and writing our books for us. We can make our own stories up for each other. They're loving this idea that they're creating for
Sure.
their own contemporaries. And then one little boy has the idea that in his story, he's going to sort out the Middle East conflict. And his friend turns around to him and goes, yeah, right. How are you going to do that then? Well, we're going to sit down, we're going to have a cup of tea, and when we've sorted it all out, we're going to have a pizza party.
It might have
And then
worked.
the main debate is really about whether you have pineapple on your pizza or not. And so it then crossed my mind, well, maybe children's stories can cross borders.
For sure.
And just before Christmas, we were celebrated across India and Pakistan's border. We were
Wow.
featured in Pakistan's education press, and then we're on the front cover of a magazine in India and receiving a Women's Leadership Award in India. So we've crossed one of the most militarized borders in the world with our stories.
That's powerful.
We've been obviously on podcasts in the US, and we've been in Canada's education press. You guys are a bit grumpy with, well, the Canadians are grumpy with you guys at the minute. Argentina have picked up on us, and Argentina, of course, have never forgotten what the UK did to
Right,
them in the
right.
Falklands.
There's a little
Yeah,
island problem that you had.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm like, yeah, kids' stories can cross borders that
Well,
politicians
because it
can't
goes
or
back,
don't want to.
right. The politicians and all that stuff really get in the way. This is
Yeah,
always people. No
yeah.
matter what you do, is the connection to people becomes so powerful.
And so stories, children's stories, really are proving themselves to be borderless.
Yep. That's
Borderless
awesome.
in terms of what the educational bias might be, borderless in terms of what the lines drawn on a map might be.
That is
Mm.
beautiful. Unfortunately that you had to go through it, and you're still going through it. And
Yeah, yeah.
what,
So whilst that was all going on, we'd plotted our second book, and I think this is really interesting in that the first book is six short stories, but it really took me by surprise in that when we came on to do the second book, because Gabriel's like, of course we're now doing the next book.
right? Yeah.
The second book is one continuous story because he'd got so much more confident about what was possible. So, can we resurrect a dodo? I'm like, I've no idea. Well, Mum, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go and visit all the endangered animals. I'm like, Gabriel, I'm a physio. I write bullet points. You don't understand. I'm not a trained author.
Well,
He's completely, his belief is like, right, Mum, we can do this. This is the plot and this is where we're going. And it's me that's like, right, okay, if we're going to do that, we need to make a proper plan because seriously, this is, you start to
I,
think this is getting beyond my writing skill.
Well, but isn't that fun?
Yeah.
For me, I find the fun when I'm talking to a client, writing a story, and they mention something, and then I Google it or research, do some research, and I'm like, oh my God, how deep this story can go. You
And
know,
Gabriel's only answer to my inhibitions were, Mum, just use all your skills.
right, right, just figure it
Okay,
out. Yeah, mom, just figure it out.
exactly. Exactly. So I needed very loosely a plot. So very loosely, we used the plot of Around the World in 80 Days because I
Yeah,
just needed some framework to
right,
hang
and
it all
and
on.
and every story that we read is really redone. It's a story from the there's only so
Yeah.
many stories you can have. I mean, they add, AI now, but it's all the same stories that people have been talking about all the time,
Yeah.
and
And
that's
it
the
was
beauty.
quite curious what came out of book two because book one ended up my metaphor that I was adding into book one was just about don't quit, don't give up, don't know what we're going to do, but don't give up. Book two, this dodo that we bring back to life ends up being called Hope, and it really is about the resurrection of hope.
Mm,
And then the third book, which literally I've just been finishing the illustrations off this today,
yeah,
um, is much more about identity and who are we, and freeing ourselves from the prison or constraints that society might put us in, or paperwork, legal paperwork might put us in, when we know our own truth. So, yeah, that's book three. But we've already, he's already
well,
decided book four. We're off to meet the Aztecs.
yep. Well, that's the beauty of one kind of leveraging his imagination, and we should always encourage our kids to have an imagination. And once you have one book, man, it really, really is easy. You know the process, and that process becomes easier and easier as long as you don't have ideas and you have more time now to have the creativity and once you weave that in, that's why people are amazed when I get lost like off of social media for a while. They're amazed that I always come out with like two or three stories because I love living in those worlds. For
Yeah,
me, that's
yeah.
why a lot of my books have been turning out to be the fiction books because uh, I love living in those worlds. I love to make those people alive, the animals or such.
And it's certainly been very, very therapeutic for both
For,
of us. It
for
really
sure,
has.
there's such a therapeutic part of writing a story and creating a world that
Mm.
you're a hero or things work out in a way that helps you through different, you know, pieces.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so um, we have seen each other fairly recently for about 90 minutes or so. And Gabriel is very much now, um, well, we both are, but pushing and pushing. So I have this sense that the impact of our stories is helping whoever needs to find some honour to open the door and let Gabriel and I enjoy some time together this summer might
Well,
well be.
let's hope that
Yeah,
we'll all put the good energy out there. I really
yeah.
believe, moving the energy. As we get close to the end of the episode, I always have people walk into my magic garden and plant a seed. So you've given us some knowledge, you've given us some stories, some things to think of. Is there one message you'd love to share, maybe about story writing or anything? It doesn't have to be about story writing. The Jack. It could either grow like Jack and the Magic Beanstalk, or it could take some time where we need to nurture it a little bit.
The thing that's got me up every single morning over the last 2.5 years is Kipling's poem If. So I mentioned before that my granddad was a great monologuer.
Yep.
I don't remember him ever reading me a book, but I'd ask him to recite his monologues again and again to me, and If was the one I'd ask for most.
Mm.
And I feel like we have lived that. And I also feel like we underestimate the power of oral storytelling. But that if been instilled in me as a young girl again, again, and again, and again, never did I realise, and I'm sure he didn't necessarily realise, how much I was going to need it and the power of it 40 years later. So I think the seed
Yep. The
is
is the
is
power of
if.
if.
That
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
letter word, if,
One
if,
of, one one
if,
of the one of the biggest words in the world is
if.
if. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. How can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Kate Markland, or the website is storyquestglobal.com.
Okay, we'll make sure that those are in the notes. Thank you
Thank you,
so much,
David.
Kate. I really can't wait to see your books. I hope we connect further, either through writing or just connections. I'm glad that things are working out towards a better future for both of you.
They appear to be. Thank you very much, David, for having me.
Okay. And everybody else is always peace and love in our lives. I want you that to be the foundation of your lives. And when you bring a bat, bring those awesome thoughts and make sure you're able to hit your sweet spot. Thanks so much.